to the channel. Today, I'm sharing a disturbing story from a forgotten stretch of American highway. This story is fictional and created purely for entertainment, but I can promise you one thing: it will stay with you long after it ends. This is the story of a truck driver who spent most of his life on American highways and who learned, far too late, that some roads don't just take you places. Some roads test how badly you want to survive. My name is Ethan Walker. I'm 72 years old now, but this incident happened when I was just 20, back in 1976. At the time, I was working as a truck driver, hauling gravel and cement for a road construction project cutting through the Appalachian Mountains in West Virginia. It was an isolated area, surrounded by thick forest with no nearby towns and no phone service. During the day, the place was crowded with workers and heavy machinery, but once night fell, the entire area turned silent. Most drivers went home in the evenings, but my home was several hours away, so I stayed back, sleeping inside my truck. I cooked simple meals on a portable burner and spent my nights parked near the tree line. The forest was calm, but it never felt empty. You could hear owls calling, branches snapping, and sometimes movement you couldn't see. One night, close to midnight, someone knocked on my truck door. When I shined my flashlight outside, I saw a man standing near the window. He looked to be in his mid-30s, wearing dirty clothes with an untrimmed beard and tired eyes. He asked if I could spare some water. He said he had been walking for a long time and his stomach was burning from spicy food. As he drank, he mentioned a small diner hidden off a dirt path in the woods, run by an old woman. According to him, the food there was incredible, especially the meat. I had been surviving on canned beans for weeks, so the thought of a proper meal stayed in my mind long after he left. The next evening, hunger finally pushed me to go looking for that place. I followed the directions he had given me and walked along a rough forest trail. After about 30 minutes, I smelled cooked meat in the air. Soon, I saw a small wooden shack ahead of me. A red lantern hung outside, gently swaying. There was no sign, no parking area, nothing to suggest it was a diner. Before I could call out, an elderly woman appeared behind me. She was heavy-set, with gray hair pulled back and pale skin. She wore an old white dress and had a strange, fixed smile. She called me son and asked if I was hungry. That night, she served me simple food and told me to come back the next evening for something special. As I was leaving, I noticed dark stains on her hands, but I convinced myself not to overthink it. The following night, she kept her promise. She placed a full plate in front of me: bread, rice, and a thick meat stew. The taste was unlike anything I had ever eaten: rich, deep, and almost addictive. When I asked what kind of meat it was, she paused for a moment, smiled, and said it was lamb. Before I left, she packed some dried meat in a small container and told me to eat it later. That night, I woke up to heavy movement outside my truck. When I turned on the headlights, my heart nearly stopped. Large, wild hogs surrounded my vehicle, sniffing the air and circling slowly. They weren't aggressive, but they were clearly hunting. That's when I realized they were drawn to the smell of the dried meat. Panicking, I threw the container far into the woods. The hogs immediately ran after it. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. Over the next few days, I kept eating at the diner, but something started to bother me. I was always the only customer. On my final night at the job site, I overheard the old woman arguing with someone inside the shack. When I looked closer, I saw her handing a familiar food container to a man. It was the same man who had asked me for water days earlier. Later that night, as I was driving out of the forest toward home, I heard screaming. My headlights caught a man running across the road with wild hogs chasing him from behind. I hit the brakes, but it was too late. The impact happened before I could react. Guilt forced me to turn back. What I saw still haunts me. The man lay motionless on the road. The hogs waited nearby, watching. And standing beside the body was the old woman. Calm and focused, she was collecting what remained into a basket. She looked up at me and smiled. Then she tossed dried meat toward the animals and walked back into the forest, disappearing into the darkness. That was the moment I understood everything. The meat, the hogs, the empty diner, none of it was a coincidence. I was never just a customer. I was being prepared. I drove away and never returned. From that day on, I never ate meat again. Even now, decades later, I still see that red lantern when I close my eyes. Somewhere out there, it's probably still burning, and if you ever see it on a lonely road, don't stop. I reported the incident the next morning. I told the sheriff everything I had seen, every detail I could remember. They sent officers to the area along with search teams, but nothing was found. No diner, no shack, no lantern, just trees, dirt, and an old, overgrown trail that looked like it hadn't been used in years. The official report listed the man's death as a hit-and-run involving wildlife interference. The rest of my statement was quietly ignored. A few weeks later, I was called in again. This time, they asked fewer questions. They suggested I had been exhausted, stressed, and confused. They advised me to forget what I thought I saw and move on with my life. That's when I understood something. Whatever that place was, it had existed before, and it would exist again. Over the years, I kept driving trucks, but I avoided mountain roads whenever I could. I stopped trusting roadside diners that didn't have lights, signs, or other customers. Sometimes, late at night, I'd hear stories from other drivers. Stories about a red light in the woods, about food that tasted too good, about animals that followed the smell. Over the years, I kept driving trucks, but I avoided mountain roads whenever I could. I stopped trusting roadside diners that didn't have lights, signs, or other customers. Sometimes, late at night, I'd hear stories from other drivers. Stories about a red light in the woods, about food that tasted too good, about animals that followed the smell. Every time, I felt my hands tighten on the steering wheel. I'm an old man now. My driving days are over. But I'm telling this story for a reason. Highways change, roads get rebuilt, forests grow back. But some places don't disappear. They wait. So if you're driving late at night and you see a single red lantern glowing where no building should be, don't slow down. Don't get curious. And no matter how hungry you are, keep driving.